Edison365. This is a 3-hour demo to assess the platform's ability to meet business requirements. I request everyone to mute their mics if you haven't already. We will follow the meeting time and I ask everyone to stick to the schedule. With that, I now pass it over to Tad. Thanks.
Good morning again. Thank you, Shriram. Really appreciate that introduction. Can you guys hear me okay this morning?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, good morning. For those of you who I've already met, good morning again. For those of you that I have not had a chance to meet and the pleasure yet, my name is Tad Haas, and I'm with Edison365 out of Seattle. And on the phone with me is Paul Mather, our CTO, and Ivan Lloyd, the CEO of Edison365. We're really excited about the opportunity to work with you all. Obviously, many of you hopefully have read or at least scanned our proposal to you and the documents that we have there. There is a landing page that I encourage you to go to, edison365.com/KPMG. Then if you have trouble finding it, let me know. That's where the recordings have been landing for these sessions and other content that will help reinforce for you many of the things that we're talking about today. As some of you know already, we did an executive briefing yesterday morning to Jens and Justin and Cliff and many of the team there, followed up by a deep technical dive in the afternoon relative to some of the particulars and ultimately the goodness of the Edison365 hybrid SaaS deployment. And by hybrid SaaS, the important thing to take away with that is, yes, we're fully a SaaS cloud tool that is, scalable and all of that built for global geographies, but that all of the data resides inside of the KPMG Office 365 and Microsoft 365 Azure tenants. So we're a cloud solution with secure data in your environment. Paul certainly is here technically to answer detailed questions that come up on that part of the path. My role as Executive Vice President here is to work with our customers. I get the joy and the pleasure of working with Chief Innovation Officers, directors, and their peers pretty much every day. And so that makes getting up early in the morning worthwhile. And certainly the goal today is to answer immediate questions that are top of mind, knowing that you're on a very fast pace through your evaluation. But then second of all is to make sure that we get through your contents questions kind of in the 13 different areas that you've covered on here, everything from idea submission, user experience, workflow, campaign management, etc. So yes, I have a hard copy printout here with notes because I'm still old school enough to want to be able to have some of that writing in front of me. With that, I'm prepared to dive in and we can start walking through the sessions down that path if that's the most efficient way for you. So I'm going to ask the KPMG team, Nadine, others, et cetera, how you would like to proceed this morning, or if you believe we would be best served by an overview demo for the people that are seeing this for the first time. So I'll ask for your guidance.
So I think we can just walk down the path. We did provide the team with all of your RFP response materials. So thank you very much again for pulling that together and for creating a custom page for KPMG and the custom demo videos in response to our requirements. So really appreciate that. And so, yeah, if you want to start, maybe, show us how users submit ideas and we can just flow through there.
All right, that sounds like a plan.
Thank you.
And while we're going through this, certainly if people have questions, feel free to ask. Obviously, we want to try to make this as interactive as possible for you. I'll jump around a little bit to make sure that we cover each of these session areas. So don't think of this kind of as an end-to-end flow, although you've got some of it in here in that kind of similar way. There are also parts we'll need to jump around to just to make sure that we cover part of that. So if there's confusion or questions, please jump in and ask. Ivan, Paul, didn't know if there's anything you guys wanted to get out there up front, or should we just dive in? All right. Cool. Let me make sure that you can see my screen with a quick share here. And by the way, if I look away to the left or to the right, it's not because I'm not paying attention to you. I just have different monitors up here. for a little bit of command and control, if you will. So assume you can see the screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Let me just do one other quick thing here, and then I will be good to go. Okay, great. For those of you that have not seen edison365 before or not in detail at some level, this is our landing page. And when KPMG deploys edison365, this will be branded with all of the KPMG logos and look and feel. And whether it's KPMG I for international and the whole face, or each of the member firms need to make some tweaks or changes for their particular landing pages, if you do those. We encourage you to do one large KPMG site and web portal that will let you go through and capture all of these great ideas and take good ideas, make them great, and get, hopefully revenue driven or happy customer outcomes. But you can brand and style these. We talked about this at length yesterday, so I won't spend too much time in here, but Edison 365 is set up so that you can have tenants that meet the needs and the requirements of your member firms. And you can also go through and set up specific audiences and groups to be able to go through and control who has access to what, when, and where. We'll dive into more of that as we get through the list, but I think fundamentally, just feel comfortable about that. The other thing I'll start by saying, just as a reminder to everyone else, is that when we launch this application, we're all authenticated through your Microsoft platform. And many of our customers choose to launch Edison 365 either with an icon or a hot link directly from an innovation page inside of your SharePoint portal. Other people will go through and launch this through the app launcher or the waffle, as some people will go through and kick off things that way comfortably. And others will go through and use their mobile device to access Edison 365. And whether that's an iPhone or an Android tablet, you should be able to successfully run the tools directly from any of those platforms at any time. That's important, of course, because we want idea submission to be as simple and easy as possible. And there are a couple of ways that people can get into submitting ideas through the product. The first, most direct way is to click the big easy button over here, the big yellow button that says Add Idea, which means if I'm an ideator or a problem solver in the KPMG vernacular, I'm going to come to a quick page that said, I've just got any old random idea that I want to put in here kind of as a suggestion box. Or more importantly, we know healthcare is a big problem, or we have other things that we want to contribute to, which are challenges or campaigns that you'll spend time promoting. You have a good volume of these. I think you do somewhere between 50 and 60 a month potentially. And so quite often you'll invite people directly to those ideas, at which point you'll send out an email, all company, or you'll invite someone to participate on a campaign through Teams, because Edison 365 is built for Microsoft Teams as well. And they'll simply go through and start adding ideas there as well. But in this case, let's say I want to go through and accelerate digital transformation pulled directly off of one of your corporate websites. And as such, we have created a form. This is an example of kind of a pretty much out of the box form that will go through and let you capture as much or as little information as you would like. Many of you know that are actively engaged in innovation management. What you put in these forms, the type of questions you ask, the consistency on telling submitters how you're going to rate their ideas, all those kind of things are the best practices. And so you can create what you need inside of these for, what do you want? Do you care about cost? Do you care about time to implement? What are other categories and things that you want to capture as well? How much or how little of this is up to you. It can be changed by each campaign, and so you'll have the opportunity to go through and do that.
Sorry, Tad, can I ask a question?
Please. Hi, Michelle.
Just on your description, the description up above, depending on how you create the challenge, does that mean this will become pre-populated? So description, cost, and implement is already there?
Correct. You can
Okay.
pre-populate the text with as much as you want or as little as you want. So if we go through the process of just putting in the idea, then it's doing a quick search, by the way. That's what the blue is going out here to do, to see if it'll find another KPMG related idea. And you can see that, in fact, that there are two we've kind of used throughout our demonstration. So if I'm a submitter, I could go, oh yeah, that's my idea right over there, that kiosk thing. I click on that and go become a contributor to that idea rather than creating duplicity right out of the moment. Assuming it is unique or I still want to move forward, then I simply go through my form and begin the process of typing in data. You guys are not here to watch me type data, so I'm just going to put some stuff in here, and you can make this as clever or as much as you'd like. If you want to link in images, attach videos, if you want to go through and drop in your mural canvas, and I'll show you different ways in which we engage in those kind of things, all of that can be done directly through this very rich editing experience. So when I go through and put these in, if I'm a bullet point thinker, then, I can go through and do all of those things in a fancy, clever way. Now, because as the challenge creator or your problem owner, you've put this thing out here about digital transformation, you've put some information about pre-COVID, we can actually see the kind of engagement that's going through and stuff like that. You have pre-populated what the categories are that this aligns to. Whether you call these business strategies or just simple categories, this lets us really focus in on those things that are important. Now, based off what you zoom in on or based off what you choose here, it will by default create some campaign images. And these will be brought up for us in reflection of whatever that particular category is. We can, of course, always go through and upload our own image or go through and work with it that way. And by the way, everything I'm doing today, you'll notice I'm going to zoom in and zoom out occasionally, and I can touch the screen for different things that I want to go through and do. So I can use my fingers, and everything is touch enabled in the way we do that, which is one of the reasons why this works fine on the mobile devices. Now, this question came up the other day. Do you submit anonymously? And this is a toggle that the problem owner gets to choose. We've put it on yes here as an example so that someone could do that, at which point my name goes away. There then is a whole management process in terms of what you want to do for that and how you manage that afterwards, but that gives you the ability to do that. Now, if Ivan is my cohort on this, I'm going to go ahead and find Ivan to go through and do this as well. And it will find Ivan for me. Whoops, sorry, I can't type this early in the morning. And now I've put Ivan as a co-contributor on this. We can drop out more financial data if we want. Here's a chance where you can say, I want people to be able to discuss yes or no. And that can be done on the individual idea, or it can be done at the challenge level. So you might not want people to do discussions on sensitive items or things like that. And as you'll see later, of course, we have a full set of stage gates or stages that you send your ideas through. This captures where we're at today. We could, again, have a full form here to type in additional information, attach documents, and move forward. At that point, I simply hit save and publish. If I hit save as draft, then I, as the ideator, am going to noodle on this for a while. I'll get through these items and then come back to it when I want to complete the work.
Sorry, quick question. Are we able to upload any types of attachments, for example, like Alteryx files or Power BI files or things like that?
Yes, I'm not aware of any limits or particular file constraints. Paul or Ivan may know differently, but in my practices with companies doing normal corporate work, I haven't seen a limit with that. Whether or not you can do anything intelligently with that file obviously depends on your environment and what you have. But for example, if I attached a PBIX file, it would launch a Power BI, it would open up the Power BI portal, and away I would go. As you know, the reports are a big part of our functionality, and edison365 uses Power BI for our actual reporting dashboards. And so we'll come back to that quite directly, and then we'll be able to go through and talk about that specifically.
Thank you.
Cool.
Another question, Ted, sorry. The anonymous function, is that something that as an administrator you can switch off or, yeah, okay.
Yes,
First.
absolutely. We actually try to discourage it. We believe open
Yeah.
transfer, innovation should be a team sport, and that's really the best way to get things done.
Fully
So
agreed.
good deal. Glad to hear that. So this is then our KPMG idea. You'll see that it has its own landing page. It's within the construct of the edison365 platform. And once I have this idea entered, then I get to do all kinds of fun things with that. Now, if I'm also an idea submitter or I'm someone that cares about this issue, I might come in and look at this idea and start to participate and contribute. This might be another submitter. This might be a problem owner. It could be an executive. It could be a team. So these, of course, are things that you might want to do. Now, the first thing that you'll see, and we'll come back to this because you asked kind of in section 2 here about idea evaluation and things along those lines, that one of the first steps is kind of a Yelp rating. Everybody uses Yelp. You guys are used to doing this. You know that I'm going to bias towards the right using stars. It's just the nature of rating, but this gives me a way to do it. More importantly, I have the opportunity to go through and spend innovation capital. If you provide for me votes, then in this case, I'm going to go through and give up some of my votes because I think your idea is so awesome. So I'm going to choose those votes here and then apply those as such. Now, as lots of people look at it, then obviously you'll get more votes over time. You'll see through the leaderboard how things kind of surface up and bubble up and where they get positioned on the broader pages to be able to go through with that.
Question on that. Are you able to have unlimited votes?
You can construct the votes. I'll look back to Paul to ask if it's unlimited. You can put a very large number in such that it shouldn't be a constraint, but
Yeah.
I don't know about unlimited.
Okay, and then are the votes the maximum number of votes per challenge or per idea?
You can control that. And
Okay.
I'll show you how we control that in section something or
That's
other.
okay. That guide, by the way, is just like a discussion guide. Like you don't have to follow it strictly. Don't worry about it. Just to give you an idea of, what we're evaluating, what we're looking at.
Good deal.
So for the star rating, are we able to disable that from being viewed and completed?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Nobody's ever asked if they can disable star ratings. They seem so harmless.
Until you get a 1.5 on your idea. Okay.
What was the answer? What was the answer on that, Paul?
I was just going to interject there, sorry. So the star rating you can control by the stages of the ideas. You can't hide it, but you can set the stages at the stars to be read-only at a certain point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, exactly. And in fact, Paul brings up a good point, and you do ask about this. And we'll look at this a little bit later, is that these controls allow you to set various forms. So your first intake form may be simple and very short for the first idea. But when you get to under review, you may ask for more data to flesh that idea out. When things are in an under review status, then in that case, you would not want additional votes. You would not want additional ratings. You've closed it for that, and now it's decisioning moment. So yes, you can definitely stop the voting, but as Paul said, it would become read only.
Thank you.
Now, we'll also keep track of things like the number of views that this is a great way to go through and gauge what's happening with an idea. And if I wanted to send this email directly to my friends because, I want them to vote on this, then it will go ahead and get me started in that process as well. And then it can open up email and I'll send an email with that link, or I can copy the link if I want to go through and drop it somewhere else in my social life inside of what the type of things that you're using there. And we talked about this before in linking to Teams, and that's another thing that you could choose to do if you wanted to drop this idea into an engineering portal or a product area, then you can put that landing page directly in those locations. But some of the things that are equally as important, because you ask about them, and this is the real world and the way people ideate, is that we want to be able to go through and start a conversation. So I can go through and put in details in here. I can say Paul, and then it will pull up Paul as someone to engage with this opinion. And then we could do the same that we've done before, attach files, add topics, go through and put fun GIFs in if we want to go through and be kind of, I don't know, pick something fun as we go through in these items. And then we are simply going through and using the ability to go through and post and have threaded discussions. This threaded discussion then will ride along all the time with this idea. It's part of the normal Microsoft infrastructure. You can do more elaborate things with this, like ask questions. So you could ask a simple question, would you vote this up or down? Or you could do something else that's engaging in the way that you might do with that. You can praise people for their great ideas, or you can go through and put surveys in, right? And this is another way of going through, do you rate it high, do you rate it low? This gives you many different ways of being able to go through and do that.
Sorry, I have one question.
Oh, yeah.
Is this chat, for example, also connected to Microsoft Teams? For example, if I'm marking here Paul, is he getting a push notification in Microsoft Teams?
He'll get push notifications correctly, yes. This is actually Yammer as the plumbing that puts in here. So if you have Yammer connected to Teams, then yes, it's going to go through and give you those Teams notices. You can also do chats in Teams, and I'll show that later. But this is one of the first easy ways of doing it in a very generic portal kind of way. And so this remains and rides along with that. But yes, I'll get notifications. I'll get email notifications. I'll get Teams notifications. If I'm assigned to things, I'll see those on my page. And which I'll demonstrate a little bit later, so everyone knows what's going on. And in fact, to that point, since we're right here, I actually have the ability to turn on or off the amount of noise that I want on this particular idea, right? Do I want to know every time somebody takes a look at it, if the stages change? And so this lets me either do it en masse or trigger them individually, which is just real world, right? That's what we want, and being able to go through and do that. As we build out an idea, as we flesh it through, a history will be created of the idea, and this will be retained and ride along. So when stages change, when things get moved or approved or otherwise, those will be maintained right there for you. Now I can see then, because we're part of this challenge of accelerating digital, then we now have submitted multiple ideas against this, and we'll look at them here. So you can see here's the idea we just created, a couple that we've done before. You can see the number of people that have viewed them, the status that's going on with them, and other things about that. And just like we keep the history of an idea, we keep the history of the challenge. You can see that documents, in fact, this is our RFP package. So, I could click on that and it would open up Word to go through and engage in the normal Microsoft way. How much I choose to show here, these might be links directly to a website that ties in your content. And this then lets us go through and work with that from an idea submission perspective. Now, the other thing that you wanted to ask about, let me pause there for a quick second on that piece. And then the next thing I want to do is go through and demonstrate a little bit more about what might happen if you want to get an idea from someone outside of the firm. Sound all right? Okay, cool.
Yes.
So one of the things that we have set up is what we call edison365 Open Innovation. And in that example, this is just another landing site, so don't worry about the particulars. But this is a generic URL website that is not going to go into your your Office 365 tenant. Instead, this is a site that you would invite students from around the globe or other business partners to sign in with their account. And so which of these sort of social accounts they sign into is the way that they would do it. And we'll spend more time talking about inviting them a little bit later and make sure that you can understand you get to control who sees this and what they get from that. So think of this as a very, very simplified Edison 365 ideas portal. It is external. It's not in your Office 365. It's not in any of your data in that way, from an authentication perspective, unless you invite people in in certain scenarios. So here then you get, just as the rest of the tool, you get things to customize your campaigns, the look and feel, the things that you want to invite people to, links to read more goodness. You can put all kinds of IP notifications down at the bottom. When they log in, there's a set of things that you'll say, anything put in here is our copyright, or however else you want to go through and do that. And then just as you do internally, you can set different business problems. By the way, we'll use the word challenge and problem interactively, and we could say idea and solution the same for the KPMG particulars. And then I would come in and say, well, I care about this particular thing. And in this case, we want to improve some things around getting ideas in, capturing data, and then putting these things in. And so just as we had the forms before, the user would simply come in and say, submit the idea. And they are now given us a simple form, again, which you get to control. And we can go through and select an image. That way people can participate, feel good about what they want to put in there. And then you can see some fields are made mandatory, others are not. And in some cases, we might have a pick list of data that we want the user to choose from. And then they could go through and pick these forms. So again, it's part of your ability to go through and do this. And you can see, obviously, I grabbed one where people have been putting in a little bit more data of late, but you can see this is a way where they're making decisions about what we should do with this thing. In this case, it's a partnership thing that we're working on suppliers with, and then hit save and done. And I need these fields. So let's just go through and put these in. And let's say we think this is going to take 5 weeks. It shows the adaptability of the form. This particular customer is working to solve particular items and they wanted to capture things. And then there's the ratings again. And now I have submitted my idea. As an external ideator, I have come into the tool. Maybe this is the first, maybe this is the only time, or maybe I've been in here before. So I'll have a personal page. And in that personal page, it will have my profile, of which I could put more data around there. You can see the ideas that I've submitted and or those ideas that have been accepted. And so then I'll know the status of my idea as well. Very simple, very straightforward. It's not designed to have a lot of features and functions. It's just simply put in ideas, capture those ideas, and do things with them later.
Can they also comment on other ideas?
Yes.
Okay.
If you choose to show them to others, I could come into this other idea that let's take one that Ello picked over here. And just like before, I can give opinions, a way of engagement, and I can go through and put comments. It's more simplified. Now you still can put videos and links and attach to project schedules or whatever is important to you, but it's simpler than the full Office 365 experience by design.
Thank you.
And so now I'm engaging, we're participating. This would have your branding, your colors, and your look and feel. to be able to go through and do that.
Tad, sorry, one quick question. The personal page that they have, is it just for this challenge that they're participating in? Or if they were in multiple challenges, would they see all of the ideas in those other challenges as well?
Yeah, yes, it's the latter. They'll see
Okay.
all of the ideas from different challenges. It is portal specific, so I'm only going to see the ideas and things that I'm engaging to this particular open innovation portal, because you might have different ones. And I think we talked about this yesterday, Nadine. You know, you may want to send out to 60,000 students to get their ideas on something, which is different than working with your much smaller partner community. And so you would set up for those. And whether you do it as one portal through audiences or you do it through multiple portals, that becomes your choice.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. We'll come back to this a little bit later because we'll do some different things with that idea later. But since I just showed the personal page, let me show that to you here as well. Because just as you saw on that other page, we also have our personal page in the rich Edison experience. And in this way, because I'm an administrator in the system, and actually I should talk about that up front. This gray bar, the things that I see here as options for me are driven based on my role. So if I'm an idea submitter, I might never see the leaderboard reports, and I certainly would not see admin. But I would see things like the personal page and of course my home page. But this maintains my Office 365 profile. When people click on me throughout the product, you'll notice we've got people pictures. You know, if I click on Rory or if I click on any of these other people, most of these are my ideas, but others that I'm engaged with. Good God, I need to clean this out. There's Ivan's idea. Then I would go through into their Delve profile and I could learn more about that particular user. We could look at the documents we collaborate and share and tie to that. That's optional. You don't have to do it. But if you do it, then it's a great way to get to learn more about the people you're participating with. So in this page, I know now my stats, not just the stats for the portal all up, but my individual contribution. Further, and we'll talk more about this under Section 3, participant incentives and things like that, this is how gamification shows up. I'm pretty active in the tool, so I get lots of ribbons. And I get to see how I'm doing in terms of creating ideas, the points that I've been awarded, and the ideas that I've been working through. I can also see the problems that I own. And by the way, we by default call these challenges. I simply renamed them to problems because some of your member firms, I think, use the word problems instead of challenges. So these are the problems that I own. And so I know that this particular one is not getting much attraction. You know, I'm not getting a lot of looks on that one, whereas others I'm having higher participation. And I can see some of those things. For example, this is an infinite open challenge or problem area where we're looking for feedback on a regular basis. I can see how many people are looking at it, and I can see what the ideas are that are being contributed to it. So the pictures become very helpful in grabbing these. Just think of them as your virtual Post-it note and all of those things. If I take notifications to the next step, imagine, you know, this, Nadine, you're in here looking at dozens and dozens and dozens of ideas. You know, you may or may not want lots of notifications on all of these. So I can come in and turn these on or off individually, or just as before, I can go through and do them at large.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Because that's an important scenario. While I'm going to get notifications in here, the other thing that happens is that in Outlook, and I've just pre-filtered this for you guys so you didn't have to watch me go through and search on just these ideas. Just today, for example, you know, there's some different things that have come in. Kyle has taken a look at or updated this idea. I was invited to another open innovation portal last night, it appears. So then I'm going to go through and see that I was invited from this company called the Murphy Group to this portal, at which point I would click on that and it would take me directly to that portal. And so this is the branding that we'll take a look at later. You'll have the KPMG logo and the look and feel, but then these type of notifications will show up for you in email. Now, the other kind of notifications that we'll get are things about which audiences I'm part of. We'll spend more time talking about that later. What awards I might be due. So if I am giving lots of ideas, then maybe I am going to go through and get some awards, like a better parking spot. At which point then I can claim my award, and if you've got these set, then they'll just automatically happen, or they'll be approved by the awards administrator. And it will go through the process, and there'll be some dialogues on that. It'll tell me more about my claim. Do I want to go through and do that? I can say yes or no. Yeah, and my garage works as a pretty good parking spot, so we'll just run with that today. And now I can go through and see how that's being worked. It's there's a history, and there's a whole part of that gamification. So that's really your number 3 area around participation and incentive and gamification. We'll talk about the admin of these later, where you get to set the points, how many points are needed for each thing, what are the ribbons, what do I get, how many points do I have to accrue to get a particular ribbon, and things along that line. Now, the last thing I'll show, well, actually, that's not true. I'm going to show 2 more since I'm here, so I don't have to come back. And one is voting, because this helps me keep track of my investment or innovation capital, if you will. Someone called it innovation coins recently. I thought that was pretty clever. This is where I can see that I have voted on ride sharing and how many votes I've applied to that. Now, if this thing is still open, or maybe it's moved into experimentation or prototyping, I've seen the first pass at this, and I think this sucker is really cool. I'm going to go ahead and up my votes, apply those, and give away a few more of my chips, if you will. So I always get to know how I'm participating, so that user has a good experience. Because I am a manager, and because someone has invited me into, or because I own a challenge, and they've asked for my participation in this, then I will also get this page called triage. And in this page, it will show the key areas that are open and things that I need to go score against. And so if I pick one of these ideas, and we'll probably come back to this, I'm going to go ahead and click on that, at which point the software is going to guide me to this particular challenge area where I'm responsible for going through and giving my opinion in a more formal rating. We've talked about triage, or we've talked about stars, we've talked about triage or votes. Now we're going to talk about triage. And in this case, I'm doing this as an individual manager. So I'm coming in and saying, well, I don't really believe Paloma's thing is going to have that much impact. I think the risk is higher. I think the cost has been underestimated. She's optimistic on the revenue, but I do think we could do this. And so if you follow the blue, I have now gone through and completed my job of rating this item. I could make a comment to Paloma if I wish to. I could drill down into the idea to learn more about it, but I am now going through and doing an assessment. You'll also go through and notice down below that some of these things are new. You'll get different triggers like this inside of edison365 when a condition has changed, or that something has been brought in after this idea might have originally been created. So these are ways of being able to go through and control and score these. These are the 4 out of the 9 that I had not scored. So I know my job as a manager to go through and score these, at which point I'd simply go through the list, I'd click save, and then I will have completed my job. I'm going to pause there. Questions?
Maybe on the overall timeline, that is it first that you can do ID submission, then you do enrichment at the voting, the additions on the IDs, and then you can go into selection or is it everything together at the same time?
It's absolutely up to you. We have some companies that do this very very open, and they're constantly going through and doing the rating. And then we have other people that are very stage gated. And I'm going to call up one of the reports because I just really like this visual. I think this is a good way of doing it. That when you are going through and looking at ideas as they're going through your stages and going through your pipeline, you can turn on or off when people get to vote, when people get to comment, and all the different things that come along with that. And so the idea funnel represents a good visual of understanding. On the left-hand side, these are our problem areas, or these are the key challenges that we're focusing on. And so from these challenges, then I have ideas that are currently in draft. I have several new ideas that are now new into the pipeline. I currently have a bottleneck of ideas that need to be reviewed. And then here's, for example, those ideas that might be in experimentation. I think you use the word prototyping more often. And so now I can see exactly what is where in this staging process. And when we go into sort of section, well, wherever it was for your triage and scoring, we'll spend more time on looking exactly what this looks like and how you move them through this funnel, because that's also very important in the way that you can go through and do that. So yeah, hopefully that will help. Is it Frederic?
Yeah, indeed.
Excellent. Thank you. Now, since we're here, go ahead.
Can you click back on the 29 ideas? So the gray box.
Mm-hmm.
So are we able actually to access and see an idea that is still in draft?
Yes. Well, no, actually, unless you're an administrator or you are the idea owner, the answer is no. Once an idea is new, and if I want to be able to go to that particular idea directly from the report, I just simply click here, and that will take me directly to the idea. This is just showing it as an administrator. You may see that people have a lot of unfinished ideas. And as an admin, you can technically go in there, but as someone else, the answer is no.
Okay.
Now, this is an important area because you've brought up some of these questions, and many of you will have already recognized that we are inside of Power BI. And that's super important because as part of the Office 365 platform, just like you have the ability to do different things with Office, here you are in this reporting dashboard. You can now go through and change all of these visuals. You can share this with people in many, many different ways. You can put them on your landing pages. If I'm a user and I want to subscribe to this every time it changes, then I can go through and hit the subscribe button, and go from there. I could go through and chat about this report. I could make a comment. And just as we've been doing before, check this out, right? I am beginning to go through and work with that. It's all tied in with Office 365. So again, I could tag Paul, and then now I've made my comments on the report, not just the idea. And those things will ride along. We'll be able to see that those comments exist. You can change these reports to be reflective of whatever is important to KPMG. And how you expose people to these reports is, of course, up to you. So if we've come into a pandemic and keeping sales high or revenue up is my biggest problem, then why wouldn't I want to focus on just those sales ideas? What are the things that are coming in that will help me save money? Or if we're trying to improve operations because we're a hospital and our efficiencies are critical, then I want to focus in on the particular area that we want to. And this then, of course, shows us how edison365 with Power BI is, a rich way of being able to go through and click to or to focus in on the thing that you care the most about.
If I don't have Power BI installed, will I still be able to see this?
Yes, if you go through and set them up as a PDF,
Mhm.
as a report to their dashboard, or if you go send these out to PowerPoint. Have you guys used this feature in Power BI? It's absolutely one of my favorites because quite often we have to give status meetings. And
Mhm.
so I'm going to simply let Power BI do my work for me. It'll take all of these reports and drop them into a deck so that when I have to walk into the Chino's office, I'm good to go, right? I've got my deck and we're ready to deliver this. It's going to go off and do its thing while it does that. But, to give you more information about these, for example, triage and scoring are important ways that you might want to go through and see how are all of my ideas doing against my targeted threshold. How many ideas are in Horizon 1, Horizon 2, Horizon 3, or quadrants, however you go through and set these up. Then I have the ability to go through and see which of these will be most impactful. And just as we did before, I can change my pivot and I can see right now my sales ideas are not particularly good. So I need to go build another campaign. I think, Nadine, we walked through some of this yesterday morning, being able to go through and drill through these things to get into that focus area, to understand what are the things that we're doing, and being able to set visuals that allow you to engage with large data sets. This is one of the great visual ways of doing it. We're obviously not here to show you all the capabilities inside of Power BI, but suffice it to say that the visuals you can use and create are pretty limitless. And the way that you can go through and set the reports that you care about is very, very helpful. In this case, we're starting to see which departments. In your case, it might be which member firms or geographies are important to KPMG. So I could have these set up as a geography rather than that. You can see actually Power BI just gave me a notice that it had finished that file. And so it will have taken these reports, dumped them into whatever template that I normally use, and then it will give me my report dashboard so I can see what are the topical areas that are coming up. So we're doing a keyword search here in our ideas and being able to show you lots of ideas are coming back relative to quality. And other topic areas, we can see the velocity of ideas that are coming in. But this has built my Power BI deck for me, so I don't have to do it. Pretty cool. That's one of the benefits of using Office 365 as your platform. Okay, so we've covered
Ted,
quite a lot.
yep.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Can we take a quick 10 minutes break as we are reaching the top of the first hour? Give people some time to, grab coffee or something, and then come back and say another 10 minutes if that's okay.
Sounds great. So we'll meet at the top of the hour then.
Yeah, it's 8:51 here in Canada, so it's EST. So we'll meet by say 9.
Great.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
We'll join back in 10 minutes. Ted, while I have you here, okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. Is there a possibility that the Teams meeting that we are on generates a attendance report by the end of every schedule? Like, do you get that?
That's a good question. I don't know. I usually just try to take a quick screenshot of the people that attend. So I do have that, but I don't know about a report of attendees. I will go look because that's actually an interesting question.
Yeah, no problem. No, typically what happens is we have, I mean, it populates it by itself, and it's the latest update. I was just wondering if you were able to do that, but that's fine. It's just I was just curious.
I will check because I've never tried.
Yeah, no
Thank you.
problem. Yeah, no worries.
Mhm.
Hi, Dad.
Hello again.
Yep, I think we can continue.
Awesome.
And if it's required, we can take another 5.
Cool. So welcome back, everybody. Hopefully we're getting reorganized here. Looks like Zahir's back. Nadine, Frederick, I don't know if others are back. Hello, Diego. And people are just coming back in. Give it a second. Okay, welcome back, everybody.
So, Tad, I have a question or more of clarification before you proceed what we want to demonstrate.
Please.
So probably you had already discussed this in other sessions with the other team members, but I want to confirm here that fundamentally what we're seeing so far is a collection of SharePoint sites with lists that contain the master data and all the submitted ideas, plus a documents library for the attachments and so on. And those ideas would follow a SharePoint workflow and produce also alerts from there and move from one assignment to the other. All of that is supported by Yammer, which is embedded across the pages, of course, connectors to Teams, and Power Automate for analytics, which we were seeing just before the break. And Delve is more about the profiles of the participants and kind of statistics about what they've been involved in. Is that understanding correct?
Yes. Yes, you've said everything correctly.
Great. Then I would like to confirm one more point as well. When it comes to the external participants, we saw personal page.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before I get to that, I'm authenticating, so using, there were a few options of them.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean that if I'm some external person and I'm authenticating here, you're creating me as a guest in the KPMG Active Directory?
No. You can, but by default, the answer is no. So the invitation to the open portal does not create guest access, does not create any access to any KPMG authentication. It's simply an invite to go to an externally facing portal where they can submit an idea. We talked about this at length yesterday. You can make them a guest user if you wish, and there are some benefits to doing that, but that's a corporate security decision and stuff like that versus otherwise. The default is no.
Okay. So since you already discussed that in length, I'll not follow up on any questions.
To visually verify, Zahir, your question, I have actually opened up the SharePoint page where, for those of you that are joining back in, we're just taking a 2-minute diversion, which is important because he asked about the fundamental structure of where we're keeping things. This is then, of course, the SharePoint page, which is underlying everything. Yeah. We put the skin on it because innovators want simple and fast and easy, and it's a little sexier, if you might give me that, versus, sort of a SharePoint list. Yeah. But there is below everything that you've been seeing the full SharePoint set, which means things like site workflows, things like the settings that you want to do. If I want to look at my list of ideas, then this is a list of ideas. And just as you can use Excel to import and you can export data, this is available to you then here to see the ideas in a long list. This was one of the questions that came up. How do you deal with large volumes? This is one of them. We also have a grid view inside of our tool, and there are other things that you can do with it. But this reinforces exactly what you asked for, which is all of the SharePoint stuff underlying that? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Cool.
Thank
You
you.
know, things like automate, integrate, these are important connector words, and we get to take advantage of that just like you do. But for the average user, they'll never see that. They'll never be exposed to any of that. They will simply be in edison365 ideas, and they will have a very warm, fuzzy experience in, going through and looking at how ideas are captured and problems are managed and brought through the cycle. So welcome back for everybody that rejoined. I do want to take one more moment to talk a little bit about the experience and the use, and then we'll sort of talk into more of the things about idea evaluation, selection, and steps that you go through. Take it another level deeper than what we've been doing so far. And this is to give you an example of things like the key metrics for your innovation portfolio. How many problems are you managing? We've got 38 in this particular view, the number of ideas that have been submitted, where things are under review. If we have particular ideas that are surfacing to the top, we'll get to see those right up front. We choose to surface for you the top problems or challenges. And of course, you can change these views depending upon what you're trying to see. You can set some to be time boxed, others can be open at all times. So you can see this one for you has 3 days left. This one has 207 days left. And so these are the problems. In the bottom third of the screen, we're going to surface for you the top ideas, which are the things that are getting the most play right now. We've been pretty active these last few days, so these ideas have surfaced to the front, but other ideas, of course, are coming through quite a bit in what people are doing. Here's an example, by the way, of an anonymous idea that came in from someone about this, and here's other things that Paloma's put in and all the rest of these for our ideas. Now, one of the questions that gets asked, of course, is, how do we go through and, look at these ideas and do different things for them? We can at any moment. Let's say I like beer and I want to go through and find any beer ideas or things that have to do with beer problems or whatever the thing is that we want to do. So I've gone through now and surfaced through the entire data set and done a search. We're using the Microsoft search here to go through and find these ideas. You can see this particular one had beer in the title, and you can guess this has beer down somewhere in the actual idea itself. And in this Discover page, we have the ability to go through and look at different types of categories or problem areas. You can see these two ideas are helping with customer awareness or new product development. They're also tied to a set of categories or strategies. And then we can see who owns these particular ideas. And this is part of the Discover page, which is designed as a way for managers, problem owners, and participants to be able to go through and look and find and work with these different ideas. And whether they choose to use them in a grid fashion, which you can see on the page here, or whether I go back to the card view, that's up to you. And then we can visually filter. We'll talk later about different problem or challenge types, because that's really important to KPMG. So you might have 3 or 4 different types of challenges, at which point I can simply click on the particular challenge type that I want to look into for our quarterly challenges, look at the owners, and then see directly what stages things are in. Some are new, some are approved. You can see things like ratings or views or other connections to these items. And then that gives us a way of being able to look quickly for those ideas or for those problems that have to do with the things that we care about.
Can we see this from a challenge manager point of view? So a lot of the people on this call are going to be running challenges for their member firms. And so, they'd be administering it. So, if I receive, let's say 30 ideas, I need to update their metadata or whatever, categories, business case, whatever it is, and process those through a funnel. How would I do that, or what's my view on the back end as a challenge manager?
Great question. So if I'm a challenge manager, I could pick any of the challenges directly from the main screen, or I could pick them from my personal page because I always know what I'm responsible for, but we've got one right here. So let's pick this now. And in this case, we are trying to improve our customer experience. Ivan happens to be the owner of this challenge. He's put a graphic up there. We could have other owners as well. There's some data about the particular challenge, what we've found, what we need, and then we're looking forward to getting great ideas. And you can see that we have had a collection of ideas about self-checkout, pay at home, think of the shopping models that we use. And so what I want to do now is look at and deal with this. I could look at the individual idea and drill down just as we've done before, or we could go through and do things in more of a bulk scenario. So to do that, we choose to open up the additional menu here, and this gives us more things to do. And we can start right at the top and say we want to review this problem, which means that it's currently in the published state. We might choose to close it for review, or we might move it into a review stage, which would have meaning for us. And we'll talk about what that is. But these are different stages that your challenges go through. Just like ideas go through the funnel, so do the challenges. So that might be the first step that we've closed that out. We can also go through and talk about, what type of challenge it is, because that would change things about it, such as the forms or the flow or things that, we might choose to do. And so this gives us a choice to set those. But for now, let's just say here we've got our idea. We might want to review this, and then we could move that into the review cycle. At which point then it would close it for additional ideas. It could stop the voting, and it would then make sure now's the time for us to go through and do that, the next steps, which we'll do on the triage side of things. And we'll do that in a couple of ways. One, we can look at our current state, because it's probably worth cleaning the ideas up first. This is one of the things that lets us go through and know what's our current state. Oops, sorry, let me just do a quick zoom here. And in this way, we want to go through, whoops, sorry about that. We have a group of ideas that are all part of this flow. Some of them are new. Some of them are in prototype or experimentation. Some of them have already received seed funding. What these buckets or what these phases or stage gates are is completely up to you. This is an example, and these are things that we see as a general best practice. If one of the ideas, like create checkout free stores, is currently under review, but this idea is big and expensive, we may choose to drop it over to backlog. Or we may have found a funder for it, so we can drop it over to funded, which is even better than awarded, right? And then that would send a notification to Ivan that his idea has been funded and would start the next part of that process. But other things that we might want to do, some of you saw me do this yesterday, where I picked someone that I wanted to be a contributor, or I wanted to evaluate this idea, so I can drag and drop Jack onto this idea. And now Jack has been made a reviewer or a participant in this. We could also make him an owner if that's what we wanted to do, but you'll start to notice that these ideas either have individuals that are contributing, or we've gone through and assigned a team. So in this case, we've assigned the management team to go through and do its evaluation and to participate through this. And they would get the notification, just like I already showed, to go in and do the triage for these items. Now, many companies choose to use a review board. Call it the SLT, call it whatever you do, but you'll have that innovation panel that will go through and start to compare all of these ideas against each other so that you can make a decision on which to fund. And sometimes it's a budget constraint, sometimes it's, the value of the idea. There are all kinds of things that go with this. Now, Nadine, because you brought up the business case thing or the project thing, we haven't hooked this demo up to project. So normally I'd click the create a project button if I was ready to take an idea or a collection of ideas forward to the actual project step. Or I could go through and create a business case because there are a group of these ideas that are pretty good that we'd like to package as a program. We'd like to get funding for those. So in this case, we can then go through and say what we really want to do is set up an innovation program budget. And we want to go through, let's just call this, and click go, and it will create the business case bucket for us. At which point then we can come back to that and start filling out the details on that. That's a separate topic. We'll come back to it later because what I want to finish is going through the notion of scoring these against each other, which means we will go back into this view, which is similar to the one you saw before. The one you saw before just presented the 4 ideas that I needed to participate in. Now we're going to see all of the ideas that are in this list, and we need to go through and score these. Now, I can see that many of them have already been scored, and that's great because now I can see the position that they're in. I can also see how other managers have scored against these individually if you choose to show this. And so you can see Ellis and Ello have not done their job yet. They haven't done their rating. We've invited some other people to come in potentially and do that. These are the requested reviewers. And then others could have offered their opinion as well if they had that role. What you'll see then, of course, is the average score in the gray. And then the latest score here from the team at this point. And you would be the driver of this. I would be the driver of this as we're going through collectively in a virtual Teams meeting, or if we're all in the same conference room fighting it out for our ideas. And here then we can take action just as we've done before, where if I come down to the bottom, I can see this pay at home idea has not been ranked yet. So let's go through and do that. I think the impact is high, the risk is low, cost isn't too bad. We should make a lot of money by doing this, and it's pretty darn easy to do. At which point then I'd click the save button, that would have ranked, and then this 9.5 will move to the top and be the top rated idea.
Okay, can you also show me, so just as an example, like I've received a ton of ideas and I need to update the impacted business area. Where would I be able to update a field in a bulk manner?
A field in a bulk manner.
Like, so, you know, I'm managing a challenge. I just received all these ideas. Now I need to categorize them. And say, for example, we've got ideas going to the audit function, we've got advisory, we've got tax. You know, how do I go in and for each of the ideas that I've received for my challenge, be able to select, you know, which business area you know, is impacted by this idea? Like, is there an area where we can capture custom category fields?
You can, and you can create those. That's part of the admin function, and we will show that in a minute.
Okay.
You can create whatever fields you like. There are traditionally two ways in which people will do the bulk edits. One is either in our grid view, or they'll do them in the SharePoint table, which I was just demonstrating before. At which point you would go through and click on the things that you wanted to change. I should say also you can change them directly in the idea form itself. So there's the idea form, there's our grid view, and then there's the SharePoint list are the three ways in which you could do that. If that was something that you did every time and there was some sort of clever step that you wanted to take, it would be reasonable to set up an automation for that. And so that you knew you had to do that every time. That would be a fourth approach to it.
Okay, thank you. And then just one note on, you had commented about the project management and portfolio management. So we do have that as part of our like what we need to see as well.
Yep.
So if we could leave some time for that, that would be great.
We will indeed. And so I wanted to make sure to get through this part and then dive into some of the particulars around customization and branding and controls. And then that will give us plenty of time because you'd ask things about role management. And then that will give us plenty of time on the portfolio management piece of it as well.
Great, thank you.
So, yeah, no, thanks for the reminder. So we have gone through this triage. We've gone through these notifications. If something was changed from under review to awarded, then Ivan will receive a message, good job, go for it. Then that message will ride along and he'll get notification that his idea has been moved forward. And then you can begin all the processes that you do internally to fund or otherwise. One of the things I did not show, and I wanted to make sure to be clear on this. Actually, let me pause before I show something else. You understand what we're doing here. You know that all of these controls or these measures are changeable by KPMG. That these let you do a quick and easy assessment of these, that you can go into lots of other detail and rigor behind that, specifically through business case. If you want to go through and do deep funding assessments or other risk assessments or things like that, this is designed for that first pass triage of ideas to move them to the next steps. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Good. Yep, no worries. So this then is the way that we will simply capture those ideas. We'll collaborate with others about those ideas. We'll tag documents. We'll tag files. We'll engage in all kinds of clever ways about that. I'm going to show you a few more reports as we start to look at some of the details so we can talk about outcome. Here is an idea, Nadine, you'll remember we fleshed this out yesterday, where we actually did keep track of the country because that was one of the things you cared about. So I'm going to show you how we add those fields, and then you can go through and edit those en masse. You can go through and have the documents associated with it. Or in your case, you guys use Mural quite a bit. Other people use Whiteboard. I'm a big OneNote fan. So depending upon your tool of choice, you are connecting to whatever drawing tool, prototyping tool, coding tool. We use Azure DevOps in our world, so a lot of our ideas might go directly to ADO as a way of going through and doing this. And this should pop up our canvas right away. Did yesterday. There we go. And so then we might have a canvas that we've built through Mural that we want to send everybody to. So this can ride along as part of the idea as well. And it doesn't matter from an edison365 perspective whether you use Mural, whether you use some third-party thing, if you use OneNote or what. These are all attributes that ride along with the idea. So they're connected, they're easy to find. You don't have to go look around everywhere. So these things are more of the controls. Let's talk about some of that. Let me take a quick scan here to make sure we've covered the big nuts. We talked about filtering, sketching. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the things that let you control what these ideas look like or what the challenge formats would be or the problem areas. We've talked about links. Let me show one more thing here just in terms of teams because somebody's going to ask and this seems like a natural time to do it. So edison365, because it is part, takes advantage of the Microsoft family, everything that we're doing in here lets us also do the same type of things directly in Teams. So if I want to have a chat about these, if I want to attach files, if I want to focus on a specific idea, and I want to send that idea out to the community so they'll engage through their team, their channel, their area, then I can post these things directly inside of Teams. And whether I'm going to one individual idea or whether I'm going to a particular challenge or whether I'm going to the whole web portal, that's up to you. And so now I'm directly inside of Teams. I can do what I might normally want to do and chat with people about this. You can see Elo and I have already got a thread going on here. And then we are engaging using Teams around this same notion, around these same items, right? And so you can invite them to the team. You can go to the team. You can spend a lot of time working through here. You can have a feed. So as new ideas come in, they'll automatically get dropped into a team area. One of the ways people really like using the tool is that they like pushing the reports to executives so that they can go through and actually view and interact with the reports directly inside of Microsoft Teams. And so now you're surfacing edison365 data directly into their preferred Teams channel. To your question about moving things into projects or moving them along the bigger funnel, Nadine, this is what we talked about yesterday morning, in that all things here in the yellow would be the ideas that are funneling through the portfolio. The things in orange here are those ideas that are requiring further financial breakdown or breakout of business case data. Think of spreadsheets and think of approval cycles by IT and finance and all the rest of the normal boring stuff. And then the things in green are those projects that we've actually moved forward. And so from this, you can start to see the velocity of our idea conversion rate, how many business cases turn into projects, and how much benefit are we getting out of our innovation portfolio. Because as innovators, that's one of our jobs. We have to prove how much innovation we're creating, we're saving, we're making, whatever that might be. And just as we can create reports that give us the particulars on the idea set that we looked at before, that same is true for the business cases that are coming through the funnel. We can see where things might have bottlenecked, where we've got a lot of red flags, where these are not getting approved quick enough. Those projects that are coming through, and by the way, who are the managers responsible for them, which have a positive or a negative quick assessment. And of course, you can do more detailed ROI analysis on those. The projects that are starting to move through the cycle, what their current condition is, and then more importantly, how are we doing all up, right? What is the portfolio doing? Remember, we talked about sales and delivery and operations before. We can start to see what our portfolio of operation ideas are moving through, where they are. Pick any of the categories. We can start to look at the things like this model, the financial model, which is starting to show us payback. The current projects and business cases that we are reviewing or that are in flight versus all of the ideas in the portfolio. Some make it to the business case stage. Some will make it to the project stage.
Just a question, and sorry if this has been, if you've gone through this already or if someone's asked a question, but is it easy for us, so say you export this report, it's visible here in Teams, how easy is it to switch between what we would do, which is between local member firms or separate groups? Or do you need to export a different report for every single one?
No, in fact, I wouldn't do that at all. I would try to standardize on your report set and then simply have a pivot by country or member firm. So in this case, let's grab a different example here. Let's see what might work well. Let's go back in here. That's not going to work particularly well either. I might want to go through and say, here I've got 4 different pivots. I've got things that are in the under review stage, or I've got things that are in the approved stage. This is simply a visual that I can click on. You could have a map, and I should have a map diagram up here where I would pick country. And so I don't know where you're from, but if you pick Canada and Canada was green, then I would just be looking at things that are Canada. And when I subscribe as a Canadian user, Business Case can pre-filter that work for you if you want, or you can visually do the filters if you care in that way. You can also take the same report, deploy it against your view only. So you might standardize the reports, but have different audiences. And we'll talk about that in a minute as well, because audiences let you control who sees what and how.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. No, that's a good question. And it's quite important. There's just no way that edison365 can figure out all of the different ways that you're going to want to look at data, the ways that you might want to organize your groups and everything. So we've tried to make the tool very flexible in the way that you engage with it. And that means that the choices of data that you look at on the main screen, that means, which key categories you choose to segment things by, which countries you do business out of. Those are your controls. And the way we do that at edison365 is we do that through the admin portal. And inside of the admin portal, you have all kinds of different controls that let you do everything from as simple as choosing which pictures you want to automatically show up for your business, or things like audience control and security. So, who are the different audiences and groups, and then who are the people that belong inside of those groups, so that you can then go through and control who has access to these. So we may choose to define inside of the member firm world, you could have KPMG International, and then you could have every member firm as an audience. That way, when the member firm participant logs in, they will see their work. They will see their challenges. They'll see their ideas. And then you can go through and create these audiences. It's a very simple process of going through, putting the names in, grabbing membership from other areas, putting people in, and being able to go through and start looking for all people that are in marketing, because those are the folks that we want to be in this group. And so this is, again, authenticated through your SharePoint, through your Office, through your Microsoft platform. So however you've gone through and defined those, that's what it will find here. This then segments that. So when that user logs in, they're going to see that content. you can control that. That's what the rest of these features and functions are. For you might have put something in generically, but you really want to focus it towards the marketing department. People can request to join the marketing group. Here, John Glover made a request way back when, and that was approved. And so we can go through and have the controls directly built into that. And so these are the ways that edison365 gives you, as innovation process owners, a way to be able to control these things without having to go to your IT group or without having to come to edison365 all the time. We've tried to make this as self-service as humanly possible. Now, there are advanced features, and these are things that follow into SharePoint controls, and there's more things around what that means. But you know, those are deeper things that you'll consider when you go through and do your rollout. We'll do that with you when you first deploy. We have a set of discovery workshops, actions and configurations that we go through. They've been presented in our proposal to you that will get you started directly with the formats that you use. And that includes things like stages. In each of the demos you've seen, you're asking questions along, steps and stages and notifications and things like that. This is where we control those. And it's pretty straightforward. I mean, I'm a business user. I'm not a deep tech geek. And I can go through and add these stages. I can go through and edit these things. And I can understand what it means to put a challenge under review. Do I want to be able to submit ideas once I close it? Yes or no? Do I want to hide that content so people can't see it? Right. And I get to set these controls so that you can put these stages in place. And so these are the stages that a problem goes through. These are the stages that an idea goes through. Hopefully you will recognize these as our funnel, right? We put experimentation in as one of those. And so I want to be able to create business cases or projects from that. I can put things read only if I really don't want people to be able to make edits or changes in these. And you can lock these controls down. It's as simple as clicking the edit or clicking the add. And as you've seen me already do before, I get to turn these toggles on or off depending upon what I'm trying to do. I don't need IT and I don't need Edison.
When you set up a new challenge, do you have to follow the platform stage gates, or can you modify the stage gates for your own challenge, or add new ones?
Today, the stage gates is universal so that you have those gates across and try to keep a consistent approach. We are in the middle of putting in place a release that will put stages set to challenge types. Because you can have challenge type today, you might collect different parts of information. You'll have different owners. You'll have different things that go along with that, which has been great. People love that. But now, just as you've requested, we've had other customers say for different challenge types, we'd like to have them go through a different staging. Now, I can solve that problem technically today. Let me finish real quick and then open it up for more questions. I can solve that question today very quickly by standing up an instance that is targeted towards that one thing, because you're just doing open innovation with students, and that's big and separate. So that's worth standing that up. So technically, yes, I can do it, but we want to make it easier and better for you. So go ahead.
Yes, on this point, customizing stages by types here, would that be the same for forms? Maybe for the fields in the forms, for the type of documents you can upload or you must upload to a form?
No, those you get to change throughout every challenge type, and you can change those within different stages. So no, you have complete control, and thank you for asking for that. It just seems that we've been seeing more. Yep, Ivan just put a note up there. Triage per type due in August. Thank you, Ivan, for jumping in on that. So that's part of our backlog and part of what we're rolling out here shortly. And Zahir, since you brought us to that with your question, let me talk a little bit about the stages and the forms. I'm sorry, not the stages and the forms, but fields and forms. You're smart people. You've been using technology for a long time. You know what it is to create a SharePoint list or a database. And that's what we're doing directly inside of edison365. These are the fields that you capture all along the cycle so that you can do clever things with them. And these are SharePoint field types, and you get controls for problems or challenges. And then there are idea fields. If I want to create a new field at any time, I can come in and type that field, and I can go through then and say, well, what type of field is it? Do I want to pick people? At which point I can go through and pick this. You might be picking member firms, or you might be picking countries. So you can go through and set those up as field types, a URL to your mural canvases or your Clarizen stuff if you're doing that. This is all right there for you to control. You know, you pick one, and then maybe I want it to be a date picker. So this is the date and time I need this idea reviewed by. I click OK, and then that field is directly available for me throughout the forms. Whether I put it on all or just some requests or input forms is up to you.
So if I'm a challenge manager, I have to contact the platform administrator to add my field before I can add it into my challenge? Or can I add a field without the admin having to add it?
In order to add a field here, you will have to have an admin role.
Mm-hmm.
So, but once the fields have been created here, then you can go through and have those set up. The idea is to set a challenge type up ahead of time so that you don't have to do that work every time. So when, and I haven't even actually demonstrated this, so your question is pretty topical. When I, as a challenge owner or a problem owner, want to come in and put my problem into the portal, I simply say add problem or add challenge, and I pick from the types that we've agreed to. I know KPMG's special and unique, and every firm does it totally different and all of that, but you have to agree that there is some benefit on standardization, that you can have a better job of consistently comparing. You can have an easier time of doing reporting. You can have an easier time of doing evaluation. So by choosing a set of standards, A, you'll minimize the amount of overhead for that problem owner. Two, you'll make the job easier for your innovation leads and consultants, and your managers and owners and stakeholders will have a much easier time reporting against those things. So they would come in and choose from one of these types that would allow us to go through and understand, you know, what type of challenge is it. And then you can selectively go through and make certain people challenge owners or admins or what have you, so that you can control what they can do and not do.
So for the role of a challenge manager, in the platform, there's an admin for the whole platform who has this view, and then the challenge creator is a lesser, they have less rights than an admin. Okay.
Correct.
But you can't just become a challenge creator. You have to be granted the role or permissions, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great.
And so the administrators are those people that can change all of the things underneath the admin option panel.
Mm-hmm.
Challenge creators are the next most feature rich or powerful, if you will, and they can go through and create the problems. They can walk everything through the process. They can vote, triage, do everything, be part of an evaluation team. You know, that's up to you. Idea creators are traditionally all company.
Mm-hmm.
And then viewers is some weird thing that we have just in case executives want to look and not touch.
That's a good one. We have a leadership role as well. So for challenge creators, those are also the evaluators, right? So
Traditionally, yes.
do you have, if I'm just an idea creator, can I be invited by somebody to become an evaluator, or do I have to be granted the challenge creator role in order to complete an evaluation or review? So basically, can anybody be invited to become an evaluator, or do they have to have their role added, or those rights added to their role?
You've stumped me on that one. I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go check.
Okay.
Congratulations. Good call there.
I feel like I've accomplished. I'm now. I've done it for the day. Great. I'm good.
I'm 90% sure, and again, I'll have to check as well, but I'm 90% sure that they do not have to be a challenge creator. It can be anyone can become a reviewer, but they have to be allocated as a reviewer. But we will get 100% on that. Okay, that is a very important question for us. That would be ideal if we don't have to go in and manually update their role. So yes, please do let me know on that one. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. Duly noted as well. So this then gives us the ability to control these and control the other key elements of the tool. Now, I'm not going to go through and walk through all of these unless you've got specific questions or areas. I'm going to take a quick glance. Branding and customization, we'll talk a little bit about. We'll talk a little bit about the notifications. So year 5 and 7 on here. And then that will give us time to continue on through the portfolio management. I know we're scheduled for 3 hours. We're moving up on the quarter 2 on the second hour. Is our pace okay so far, or do we need more or less?
Why don't we jump to the portfolio management? The branding, I think we have a good idea about it. Like we can change the colors, the logos, the footnotes with the, everything like that. Since portfolio and project management is such a big part of our work, let's jump to that. And if we have time, we can, ask questions or revisit or touch base on the branding and the other items.
Sounds perfect. And just to reassure you, at the deep level of this, you can use CSS pages to do full style pages if you really want to get carried away in changing the look and feel.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Now, there are a couple of different ways that we can do this. Let's kind of switch hats for a minute and assume that we've taken some of these ideas forward and that we now want to go through and bring, that we want to move the ideas forward in a couple of different ways. So I'm going to show you 2 parts to this that will give you a sense of what you can do through the tool set. And one of them is business case, which we haven't talked a lot about. We did a little bit yesterday, and the other is projects. Now, it is a natural flow to take an idea to a business case to a project in that flow, and that's exactly what the software allows you to do. You pick these templates and it will move them forward, and then we can go through and start the processes of managing these in some very direct ways. But instead of trying to show you everything, I'm going to show you the fundamentals, and then you can ask questions based off that. So with edison365 business case, the goal is that we have an idea that needs to be blown out and reviewed in more detail because it's expensive, for example. So yeah, a $50,000 thing you'll go do no problem. A $500,000 thing, not a big deal. But if it's $5 million, that's some real coin. You need to get it approved. Finance has to look at it, et cetera, et cetera. And so at Edison, we've built then a platform that is using the same visual techniques, the same cues, the same personal pages, the same access to the Power BI reports that Ideas and Projects does, so that when a business case is created, you pick from a template, and in that template, you might have small, medium, or large, or in your case, you've got an innovation program where you want to go through and create an innovation program that follows a prescribed flow that you capture specific data sets around that are more detailed, that give you more options than when you're capturing just a simple idea, so that you can take this through the various stages and forms until you get to approval. You're not here to watch me type, so I'm not going to go through and fill out all of these things for you, but suffice it to say that it is very rich in data entry. It's very spreadsheet oriented or table oriented. It gives you all the right ways to capture the metadata about cost items, strategic alignments, who the managers are, the process flows, the people we assign, all of that same drag and drop that we used before. But instead of watching me, go ahead.
Sorry, is this where you also capture your project team?
It could be. Absolutely. Okay. And that would be a typical area where you may, who are the people I need? So if I have an innovation program that I remember we talked about the pay at home or self-checkout, we might have brought one of those ideas forward. And in doing that, you can now see we have more data captured. For example, what are the anticipated outcomes? What are the other justifications? Who are the business team members, to your question? Who are the business analysts we need on this? And we need various folks to be involved. And then I can see I'm currently going through the cycle. We're in the middle here. If we are ready to go through final approval, we might have looked at the cost benefit analysis where you can see we've got some spreadsheets. We want to go through and say, are we going to make money on this thing or not? It looks like we'll break even in October. So, maybe we should just push forward with this. It's probably worth doing.
Can this be exported to Excel?
You can attach Excel files to it. You can cut and paste with Excel in that way. There's not a specific export to Excel button here.
Okay.
We're trying to, as much as we want to work with Excel, we're not trying to replace it. So, these are tables for quick capture. If companies have very crazy ROI calculations, and you guys are pretty smart, so you probably do, you're going to attach some of that Excel file to go with it, and that will ride along as a file. But for the simple quick entry and the decision making, people are finding this is a better way to do it. We've got some good case studies on our website that talk about that. So I'll be happy to forward those to you and how it's really changed their world. The beauty of this is, of course, when I track a cost about putting devices or developers or stuff like that, I do get to track things like, is this CapEx or OpEx spend? How am I looking at the details on these things? And I can attribute financial benefits, non-financial benefits, cost, different breakdowns, however you choose to do it.
Question from my side, sorry for interrupt. So you're showing here the cost and benefit analysis. Is there also the possibility to adapt such kind of analysis? Because sometimes maybe you would like also to focus on some risk topics and you would like to, let's say, evaluate in your portfolio the risk and return areas.
Yes, Lena, that's exactly what you can do. And whether you identify them as risks or issues in a traditional PPM kind of way, or you look at them as, alternative analysis, things that, you're looking at from an innovation point of view, you can configure and control all of that. And I'll show some of that to you in just a second. So that's a great question. And things like, what are our business goals? What are our project performances? Are there constraints? Is there a time scale involved? What's our plan? If we are going through and tracking resources, do we want to go through and say, I need engineers, developers, et cetera? And then to your question specifically, let's go through and go ahead and drop in a risk. Then just as with ideas, we're given the forms to be able to go through and say, I want to go through and put in a new risk, which is no cash. I'm going to assign this to Ivan. So again, it knows Ivan's part of our world. Funding shortage. What's the probability of this risk? Maybe it's 25%. You know, this could be a 75% or greater. Let's just say early budget cycle. So this is a real world example. You could have tied to a contingency plan, other recommendations about it. You know, it's currently open. We might put a date on these. So we need to have this risk mitigated by that time frame. And so literally you went to ask me, can I do it, to me actually doing it in about a minute.
And is it also possible to, let's say, insert already a kind of evaluation template? Because from a risk perspective, maybe I would like to have to see the risk from, let's say, different angles and also to evaluate it from different angles.
Yes, and I'm going to show that to you in just a minute. Some of the things that come up with this, for example, are strategic alignment and things, or the different financial analysis. You can build whatever tables you like to track the various really, I can't think of all the different scenarios. Like here, in this case, we are looking at a non-financial benefit of a net promoter score increase. And so then we could track what that target benefit is for an NPS increase. And then we track our social media, and, you know, then we learn, are we making progress or aren't we? And so you can set these different items up for that. The beauty of it is when you get all of that collected, then you have the option to keep things moving by going through and saying, what I really would like to do now is take it out of this first evaluation stage. I'm not ready to scale it out to another department or group yet, but I might be ready to go through and take the next action on that, which means then I, as a manager, can move it through these stages, again, fully role dependent. I might want to move this to the test, or I think you call it prototype stage, where I will pick that next stage for it to move to, or I could accelerate it to roll out. And by doing that, I'll give the person some notes. It'll move it through there. We may start tracking other data that is important to the prototype, and this will then ride along. If things get to the point where we're ready to create the project, then we'd hit the create project button, and it will give us that same sort of thing to be able to get started in the project world, and then track things down at the task level as we would track benefits realization and move things along that cycle.
Tad, I have some questions.
Uh-huh.
What's the user experience like to add cost and benefit line items, and also the timeline and resource demand line items? Can we see the four of these line items?
They're all essentially the same. And this is a matter of going through and taking a look at the items that we want to work with in the table. And for example, if I want to go through and add activities, I do have to hit the edit button, because otherwise it's moving through stages. This is the experience of I'm now choosing to edit. And then depending upon the things that I'm looking to do, I can go through and add a new task, and whether I'm looking at a timeline or a list, right? I can go through and do it either way. So new task, and then it'll give me date fields to put in here if I wish. Still more. And I can continue to add these task items as I would like. Then I can move them, I can drag them. And so I'm given an interactive way of dealing with the task items, which is even more complete and rich inside of edison365 projects, because inside of projects, you recognize that I might have relationships between these activities. I'm going to be taking progress against those, and we give you the full experience in that way. So the forms and the fields, if I want to go through and put in a new resource, I'll say engineer, and then I might know I need a half an engineer for the first few months, and then I might need a full engineer after that, followed by 3 engineers, and I'm building quick tables. So now I have a capacity set of 12.5.
What if I span until 2021, 22?
That's fine. It just moves forward to the next year.
And we have the
So,
graph.
right, I can go back and forward. I can set these up as monthly or quarterly. You get to control. And just like inside of edison365 ideas, you get to set the parameters for which what data elements that you are capturing on that. And that, of course, lets you go through and set very specific, let's just go ahead and with that, fields and tables. There's again, the themes, the notifications, all of the similar things that you've seen before. They're right back here for you to control again.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And of course, when we start to look at business case data or the things that you might do for project requests, we obviously drop things down to more detail. We're going to use the same look and feel, the same style. So maybe I want to go through and find all of my major innovation projects or programs. And I am now pivoted to that set of innovation programs or projects that we are considering. What their stages are, their benefits, the risks, as you've asked about. We can look at the number of cases, what's the review cycle we're taking these things through, how many are in what stages. We have what we call a project on a page. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. Certainly if you're PMP certified, you're very familiar with these as a highlight report or a project on a page, where I can always go through and see very quickly what's the condition that's either as a proposal, if we're going through and talking about doing this plan. You can see the one I picked doesn't have a lot of detail, so that was a pretty bad example. But this lets us go through and understand what it is we want to do on those. Someone asked, I think Lena, Amara, you asked about a risk log. So hopefully you can see on the screen then that this provides that risk log to give us the indicators of our risk types, the probability scores.
And
then,
sorry. Oh, go ahead.
It's all right. I was just going to keep going.
For the end users to be able to use this, sort of a similar question as before, like, do I have to have a Microsoft Projects license?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay, great.
Not at all. And that's part of the actual benefit. What we love projects. We all have a lot of experience with it. And when a project is appropriate for that type of work, you want to let the project plan right along. We have special controls that let you take advantage of Microsoft Project Desktop. If you're already using Project Online, connecting to those things, then those are great. But what we're trying to do is simplify and keep track of more metadata, short of agile task lists versus detailed project plans in those ways, depending upon what you're trying to accomplish. And just like we keep track of a risk log, a benefit log, you're going to be able to see exactly where things are coming from. Are we going to get OpEx savings like we said we were going to? Doesn't look like it, right? Are we going to get some cost avoidance things? Yes. CapEx, this is ways for us to look at those items versus the cost, and then ultimately assess the investment appraisal. Should we or should we not do these? Now you saw that before in ideas as we've gone through and looked at them, but now we've blown it out to a whole bigger set of detail.
One question to this. I think maybe this question is stupid, but can I, let's say, change also, let's say, the the crafts what you have there, and also, let's say, design my own portfolio perspective here? Or is it, let's say, a kind of given portfolio what I have then to use?
You can change that. And in fact, I intended to show you some of that, so we can call up ways of doing it. I'm also going to show you a couple of ways to do that pivot inside of projects, because whether I change the report style here or whether I change the view based off my structure or assignment, all of those are possible.
Okay, perfect. And maybe another question regarding in, let's say, a kind of big investment project, if you have, let's say, different stages, there is sometimes a kind of iterative process where you, let's say, go to the business owner, say, okay, maybe we looked at your market potential, you have to fine tune it. How can I, let's say, track on a portfolio perspective, let's say, the movement from, let's say, from stage to stage, that I can see how my project is developing?
Same as we've done before with those funnel diagrams.
Okay.
Or other stage reviews for that. And one of the key things about these is that you are sending them through stages. I am assigning managers and people to be involved. So that's part of setting up a management or a process structure where you actually are doing it. This doesn't have a lot of people in here, obviously, but I actually get to talk about those controls. To someone else's question about the spreadsheets and any other documents that ride along, here's an example where we have a process flow that we've put in here as part of the supporting documentation. We'll always be able to see the history of, what has changed and when things have been updated, so you'll get that flow of the process as well. To your point about managers are responsible, and just like in ideas where I saw the ideas that I'm responsible for, in business case, I'll know as a manager which cases I'm obliged to review. And in fact, I can see right here, I've got an idea from Ella, which has been sitting in there for a long time. It's way overdue. So I need to get on that, at which point I'd click in here and then go do my thing. Let's do two things now, and then I want to pause again, is I want to say that we've decided to move a project forward. And so now it sits inside of the edison365 projects. Now we choose to do this as specific ideation and innovation on the front end because the person that's submitting the idea is not the same person that's managing the project more often than not. And so you don't want to overcomplicate the idea intake. You want that to be simple. But yet as project managers, whether I'm a PMO or I'm a innovation portfolio management office versus a project management office, I still want to be able to go through and see the collection of projects and programs that we have going on. Some of these might be super simple that are nothing more than a task list. Some might be connected to Microsoft Project Online because that's what you use. Others could be connected to Azure DevOps or Jira or other platforms that you might be managing work in. And so you have lots of ways to go through and do that. Each individual project then will have its own metadata that is collected, and we can go through and look at that detail. We can also go through and instead start to look at, let's do it this way. Let's look at the collection, someone's question about portfolio. Maybe all I care about are the major projects. So I'm just doing a filter. I'm picking the major programs that we're involved in. And instead of looking at them in these card views, which are great, I could look at them in a table view and start doing more with that, or I can look at them in a roadmap view. Now we're starting to see traditional project management stuff where I'm seeing this roadmap. I'll get all kinds of fancy Power BI reports and everything, but I want to drill down into Ivan's checkout free store because we've been talking about these checkout free stores, pay at home programs and initiatives throughout our demonstration cycle. And you can see now that this project is being managed Like traditional PPM, there are status indicators. What are my KPIs? What are the categories? Who owns this? What stages are they in, just as we've been talking about before? What's the key metadata that's controlled along that? Here's one of those scenarios where we do care quite a bit about the financial benefits that people care about. And we're going to go through and track these items, whether we look at pictures of people, whether we look at lists of items or boards that help us work with things in kind of that agile Kanban way. Then you have lots of user experiences. Someone asked about user experiences before. And so these are some of the different ways that you get to do that. Just as before, you get to control what data is shown. For example, are you keeping a change log? Are you doing a RAID, risk assumptions, right? Dependencies, are you issues? Are you doing a traditional RAID log? And this is pure, PMP stuff. There can be a schedule that sits below this, of course. And in that schedule, we can keep track of the people involved, the tasks, the timelines, or the task boards. I'll pause for questions.
2 questions. So if I had the business case, I can turn it into a project. Will the project inherit the cost-benefit analysis and load the information here, or it's going to be separate?
You get to choose some of those attributes. Sometimes people like keeping them separate. Sometimes people like moving them forward. So you get to choose.
Okay.
What we will always do is if a project comes from a business case, or a business case comes from an idea, you'll always see where they linked back to. So there's always a clean link and a trail between those items. Yep.
The other question was around the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Are we surfacing here the information from Microsoft Project Online or some other platform, or there's just different lines here? Is that different than what's in the work breakdown structure that we can find elsewhere?
You have a choice. In this particular example, we have built this schedule ourselves. And so I'm choosing to manage the plan and the tasks directly inside of edison365. In other use cases, you might choose to tie to a Microsoft project plan or a project online plan, or you may put a link to some other scheduling tool that you use so that everyone knows where to go to get the latest schedule information. Some people are starting to integrate and do clever things with Planner from Microsoft. And so there's lots of different ways to go through and do this. We're not trying to skin every cat. We're trying to give you the tools to get the job done. And, we're giving you a way to do it out of the box here, but you can also do it other ways.
Okay, so just to confirm here, if I'm managing the project in Microsoft Project Online, I have to go there to see the plan. It will not be kind of synchronized with this list that I see here.
I can have data surfaced here, but it's not going to change this schedule. I'm looking to see if Ivan's still on the line because he spends a lot of time with that stuff. Let me check with you on that one. Do you use Project Online today?
I use it.
You use it. Okay. So if it's synchronized with Project Online, that would be a good thing.
Maybe from my perspective, when I'm thinking about how we manage projects, we use what's it called? Teams Planner.
Right.
So would that be the same situation here as Projects Online? Like we could put a link and then it would divert someone to that planner and then they just jump into that environment?
Correct. So instead of trying to duplicate it, we just leave it as is. And I do have examples of this. So let's just go through and cancel out of here so we're not, because what I want to do is show you the scenarios we have. because we do have them set up for that. Here you can see we've got a little bit more detail in terms of people that are owning different things. Here is an example of Microsoft project schedules and project online schedules. So in this case, if we go into the plan, you will see that instead of trying to reproduce project online, I simply can go here to surface the project online plan, at which point you're now at the PWA page.
Okay.
Right. Again, we're not trying to, if you've ever tried to merge project schedule data and see how date calculations and everything works, it's a pretty big hole. So rather than trying to replicate that, we're simply providing the link to that. There are more clever examples where you can actually pull up a project plan with Microsoft Project. And I can show you more details on that. I'm just not prepared to show that to you today.
Sure. I mean, you can synchronize it with a SharePoint site as well, with the
Exactly correct. Yep, that's exactly correct.
So just to close on this point, the same concept applies for Jira and for Azure DevOps. So if I put a roadmap, portfolio plan, or program plan in Azure DevOps, I've got the epics and the features there. They're not going to reflect here. We'll just have a link to go into the portfolio plan over there, correct?
Correct. Although we do a few things that are a little bit more clever with Azure DevOps, specifically because people will want to take ideas and sort of take those ideas and move them directly over to the board.
Correct.
Because an idea you accelerate faster than a big project plan. And so there is direct synchronization between ideas. So when an idea moves from under review to prototype or experiment, what that really means is you want to drop it into ADO.
Sure.
And so that's exactly what we're doing, where there's a direct link between these items. So I can have that an idea that went to Azure DevOps. And then I'm doing all of my Azure DevOps things here directly, but I can see the idea that it came from. And then so that's going to be processed directly there. If you want data back, you can of course set up fields to do that. We normally just, people manage their backlog and their sprints and all the work directly here. You just want to know what idea that originally came from. And so by clicking the link, it's going to take you directly to it, and you can see exactly where it came from, how it got there, what steps and stages it went through.
And that's happening through Power Automate, reading that.
In this case, yes, that's actually just using a Power Automate to move that forward. You can see this was the idea that this particular one is using a change request approved cycle.
Right.
This is actually kind of an IT request use case that people are deploying our software for, where they wanted to go through and do that. So yeah, that's part of what you can go through and again, configure the tool to work the way you want it to.
Sure. Thank you.
Yep. Now, go ahead.
Sorry, from a roles perspective, is it the same? I mean, like, will I be able to see Pooja's projects and Michelle's projects, or, you know, am I able to edit them? Or how does it work from a role and visibility perspective?
Only if you are set up in that way. If you are made just as everywhere else, the admin panel will let you go through and have different types of projects, different forms and tables. And by the way, these are the kind of things where we're linking to Teams and the Microsoft Project Online links. I won't go through and bore you with all that detail, but to your question specifically, here's where users are defined. And inside of ideas, or inside of projects and business case, we have a very elaborate control mechanism where you can assign sort of general user types. But what happens normally is that when you have a project type, there are owners of those types. So let's pick, I don't know, the major project example here. If we go through and look at this particular project, not only will we know what the stages are that this has to go through, but we'll also be able to control who can do what with these.
Right, but if I have a major project and Lena has a major project, I can see Lena's project and I can edit it just because I have the same, because I'm also an owner in this funnel or this stage gate process.
Unless you are grouping it by audiences or other controls, yes, you would be able to go back and edit that.
Okay, so we can create audiences and those audiences would only be able to see projects related to them and not see projects not related to them.
I'm going to confirm that,
Okay.
but I believe the answer is yes.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that you've asked about also is different ways of going through and setting up reports, things that you are trying to manage or control on the visuals. And you've asked a couple of times, can I see reports directly in the tools, or do I always have to go to Power BI? There are lots of different ways of being able to do this. And in edison365 projects, here's an example where instead of going out to Power BI, I can surface those same reports directly within the tool. And people were asking yesterday about different conditions, and they've asked for it today at certain times. Maybe all I really care about is my digital transformation program or my business transformation program. Or all I really care about is my KPMG example projects or other items. I can see that this KPMG project is part of that program. And if all I really want is the detail on that, I'm making a visual pivot to those particulars as well. And again, it's touch enabled, so I can go through and use my finger to go through and pick different areas to see what the outcomes are for these views. How familiar are you guys with Power BI?
I think it, yeah, it really differs on who has access to it and.
Okay.
I've used it to create and to view, so I'm very familiar with it.
Great. So at the end of the day, it is definitely secret sauce, and it creates some incredible ways of communicating in a data-driven way, but also exceptionally interactive and visual ways also. And what I've been showing you so far, of course, are dashboards that are created and surfaced up there for you. As business users, you can go through and, of course, create your own through the desktop. And what I'm actually showing you here now is free. Anybody can download Power BI Desktop and they can start to play with it. And this allows you to import data from a ton of different sources. This allows you to create visuals in any way that you want to go through in those. And I'm not going to go through and talk about all the different ways it allows you to transform data and different things that you can do with it. But I do want to express a couple of clever things about this. And it's not just, the visualization capabilities, which are pretty much off the charts, which means you can create maps of countries and data and different things that you want to be able to go through and do with that. But you can also use the tool to do natural language query. You can also go through and use some of the AI out of the tool for it to go through and assess and analyze your data up front and start to show you trends. There's different trend reporting things that you can pull out of the tool that I'm not an expert at, but are views that you can set up to go through and do things with. For example, I might want to ask a question to my data that allows me to go through and say, how many, again, I can't type, how many ideas, right? And the software will go into our data set and look, and it will come back and tell you those. Or over here, you can see I've asked the question, how many ideas by stage, and so, or by challenge type. So this is a quick report that allows me to go through and see what I'm getting out of these. And if I don't like to see it in that format, I'd rather see it in a donut chart or a pie chart. Then making these changes is super easy. And even I, as a business user, can go back and do these. I can drop your logos in on these things, or I can go through and do the queries. And if I don't know what I want to ask, then I can let Power BI suggest to me what these, what is the top idea by ideas history, right? Show the challenges. So the software, or the Power BI, is smart enough to know what our data is. So then it will help us go through and do clever things with it, right? This isn't particularly useful in that way, but it gives us some of the detail about it. And that's part of the power of having the Microsoft stack sitting underneath it. So as they come out with new visualizations, if I don't want to show things in a pie chart, I want to show it in the table, or I want to be able to show it in some other fancy views, then there's lots of different clever ways that I can make these changes. So that was just kind of a quick, 4 or 5 minute sidetrack that I wanted to show just to give you the underlying capabilities. So we've covered quite a lot of content so far today, probably too much. Let me make sure that we've hit each of the big buckets. Let's see. Talked about role management. We've talked about different flows. One of the things that we haven't talked much about, we talked about challenges. I didn't really show the notion of campaigns, because one of the things people like to do is actively promote an upcoming idea or a campaign. And so this might be something that you should be thinking about. And these middle screens right here represent our campaigns, and they could be quarterly challenges or invites that you send out to people, innovator of the year awards, sustainability things that might be corporate internal facing, or external campus phasing things if you wanted to do external ideation. So those are all pretty important ways of looking at that. I didn't show you how you take an external idea and move it into the internals, but I'm happy to show you that if you want that detail, or use the rest of the time to just answer questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Ted?
So one question, if now I'm closing a project and I want to trace it all the way back to the campaign, what would be the easiest way to do that?
I can simply follow the links to it, and it'll take me directly from the project to the business case to the idea, or I could choose to do that as a report.
And that's bi-directional traceability, so I can also
Correct.
do it.
Correct. So if I have ideas that have been moved forward, then I'll be able to go through and pick the particular area or project that it's connected to. So instead of create business case, I'll have a view business case button here. Because it's already been created, I'll just hit view. And so that traceability is always there.
All right, thank you.
Just thinking about the full overview of all of our countries and our member firms. Say if I'm like a super admin user and I don't want to create a Power BI report, but I want to be able to have quick visibility in the ideas page, or maybe business case projects, I'm not sure. Is there a way to do it without creating a Power BI report and just having a quick look?
Well, there's lots of ways to do it. One of the traditional ways people will do this is through the leaderboard. And the leaderboard helps us understand which ideas are surfacing to the top or which contributors are engaging the most. And this lets us go through and see of all of the things that are out there, what's at the top of the funnel. And so this is a view that's going out and collecting against all of these. It takes a second to run this particular feature, and then it will call those up for us.
And that would be, I guess, you would be able to see that across all of the other groups, other member firms, if we had to.
If you had that, there was a lot of conversation yesterday about how you segment, and I'm not going to pretend to know, but if you had everything visible within one KPMG instance, then yes, it would pull all across that. And assuming you had the rights, then you would see it for everything. If you didn't and you were just responsible for a segment, then you might just see your member firm stuff. But if I'm Michelle or Nadine or whoever, and I'm kind of sitting at the top of the food chain, then I can see everything. And I can see what's in what stages. But if I am targeted to a member firm, then I will see just the things that are in my member firm unless I'm granted those rights.
Yeah, okay.
Let me be clear on this. We're very good at what we do on the security front and giving you controls through audiences and everything. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of these controls are established and set up inside of your Office 365 confines and structures. So as you can access a SharePoint site, or as you can access Office 365 and files and controls, those same scenarios and use cases are what drive the majority of our controls. We put simplified layers on top of it called audiences or role assignments because that's what innovators want. But big corporations have a whole set of controls that are your own challenges. We can't control that. Hopefully that's clear, or maybe I confused everybody.
No, it makes sense.
Okay.
Hi, Tad. This is Pooja. I had a question. So it's our BRD requirement 1.15 around trend analytics. So, for example, if I was to set up a challenge around ESG, is there any way to inspire, the idea submitters by having resources that they can look at, or news articles or anything like that? So are we able to bring in external content, to inspire people for those ideas, or even if it's within the firm?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's highly encouraged. So yes, and one super lightweight example of that is right here, where I've built a challenge off of your website. I literally cut and pasted this content from one of your innovation pages. You guys have some cool stuff, and KPMG as a team of people, you guys are thought leaders in this space. So I can't wait to work with you on a daily basis around this, because I think it'd be so cool to keep learning from you. But we see our customers tag things often in a direct link. So I can click this here and it'll take me to whatever page I had linked there as some advisory, because these were statistics that you found. And there's a report that goes along with that. You guys do a lot of work with Innovation Leader, and I get the privilege of doing that too. So whether you put your innovation report as incentive or tagged to some of the Innovation Leader stuff, absolutely yes. And that can be videos, it can be everything.
No, yes, and I currently this is exactly how we set up our challenges. We will add all the resource materials, there for idea submitters to take a look at. But is there an automated way of that the platform can do that by bringing in, say, for example, if Innovation Leader was one of the resources, that was available, would the platform be able to bring in, through AI or, some trend analytics, a report to suggest the idea submitter to read something on that Innovation Leader report that would be based on the challenge that we're asking?
By default, no.
Okay.
We don't have that capability built in. We talk about AI and machine learning all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But we have not found a consistent way yet that companies want to look at these things. Trend scouting or scouting is one of those things that's, depending upon who you talk to, it's just keeping your eyes open, right? It's going to conferences, it's listening, it's reading, forcing functions or guiding people to particular content is interesting, but what happens when that content's your competitor, or what happens when that is sensitive IP? So there's a lot of gray area in there that we personally haven't figured our way around yet. We'd love to work with you to figure something out. And collectively, with the tools that we have, you guys know that Microsoft has a whole machine learning engine built in there. And I could get Paul on the phone and we'd talk for an hour about what we should do here. But there's machine learning, there's a full AI and analytics that are built into it that can act on the data that you are storing in your tenant. So you can do whatever you choose to do with that, and our software is certainly ready to support that. But there's nothing that we do out of the box today, to be clear, but we would love to work with you on that.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Thank you, Pooja, for asking that question. And, it should be fun to investigate more of.
Agreed. Thank you.
So one clarification I had is on the voting. We can't disable it completely, right? But you can, well, on newly submitted ideas, can you prevent someone from voting?
Yes, you
Okay.
get to turn whether voting is completely controllable. Star rating is that high level Yelp review. Just like I don't think you can take star ratings out of Yelp. You can't take star ratings out of edison365 either. Voting you can. And that's part of the administration of gamification, where you can either turn them on or off at an enterprise level, or you can go through and turn some things on or off at the stage level within an idea, or you can turn some things on or off within the particular challenge type. So if I go through and create a new challenge type, then I will get controls that let me go through and set that up too. So we call them problems because that's what you call them in your docs, but we call them challenges normally. And when I go into add a new problem or challenge type, I get to set various controls. I get to set what audiences that they're into. I can turn which things I want. Let's say, for example, in these IT challenges, what do I want with those, and what fields do I like? So when I go into forms, then I'm going to go through and say, which problem type am I working on? What idea fields do I want to capture that might be different? So these are the levels of controls of things that you can do there.
Okay, so the star rating, can we prevent people from filling that out on new submissions?
I don't think so, but let me go back and check.
Okay.
And sorry, this might be a really dumb question.
Wait. I'm sorry. Actually, the answer on that is yes, because on the No, it's not. On new, it's not, because they will be able to put a star rating in there. You can stop star ratings once it gets to a particular stage, but not net new.
Okay.
Tad, sorry, like this may be a very silly question, but is it the idea submitter that would be allocating themselves a star rating, or is it other idea viewers?
Both.
Okay, so I would submit an idea and I would give myself a star rating of however much, and then Nadine would go and view my idea, and then so it would always show an average. Is that what that star rating shows?
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
Yep.
But Pooja, then I would be laughing at you that you rated your own idea. It's like liking your own comment on Facebook.
Which is what I'm sorry, like I said, dumb question. Like,
no.
I would always give myself a very high star rating. Otherwise I wouldn't have submitted that idea. I wasn't, understanding that concept when I first heard it. So
no, I saw it too. And I was laughing at myself, like, should I, boost my star rating by filling out 5 stars for my idea, but then I'm going to look like a fool. But yeah. Okay.
People are always you guys, this is great because people are always asking these questions, and star ratings are just meant as a quick pass by, right? I'm not going to make any decisions based off that. Thumbs up or star ratings are all right biased. They are. Statistically, they will always be higher than if you get someone to evaluate it on merits versus these things. So, you guys, for all I know, you guys did the report I read on that. It's definitely, it's there for convenience. It's there so that when I go look at Elo's idea and I want to support Elo, the fast, easy way for me to do that is to go through and go through here, right? Because we've got votes turned on. I can vote here, but I could also have this turned off. So I would never have the option for users to come in and apply votes. But we do have it turned on, so I could vote here. Yeah. And again, votes that next level. Okay. So starting votes, triage, etc.
Tad, one more question. If you just go to this screen before this, when in an idea at the bottom, you can see how many people have viewed the idea. Is that correct? Just how many people have gone into the idea, or is it somebody who's gone into the idea and stayed there for 2 minutes?
It's just the number of people that have gone into the idea. I'm not aware that there's a specific metric count. Interesting question, but it is people that have just come in and look at the idea.
Okay.
If this is driven by SharePoint, then that's the case.
Okay, thank you.
And it is driven by SharePoint, so yes, thank you.
So let's say I get an idea in that has, it's very sensitive, and I don't want everybody to see it, but I just want, certain reviewers to see it. Can I hide that idea from the challenge participants?
The single idea?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then can I hide all incoming ideas and just make it like a black box submission where people submit and they can't see or collaborate? Okay.
Yes.
Would I be able to invite people to, on the back end, like a challenge team, to help me process ideas, move them forward, categorize them, fill out certain fields, add the financials, whatever it is, without them? Like, what role would they have, or can I just invite anybody to do that?
You can invite, per Ivan's comment, you can invite anybody to go through and do that with you. And that's a matter
for the evaluation, right?
Right.
But for filling out a field, like a drop-down field or editing in that SharePoint table grid, how would that work?
Okay, explain again what you're trying to do.
So I have like 150 ideas that got submitted to my challenge. They're hidden from everybody or not, it doesn't matter. Now, I have a team of people helping me process these ideas, move them through the stage gates, and fill out the fields on them, categorize them, enter the financials, identify the impacted business area, whatever it is. And I need those people to be able to access whatever the back end, or, can they make updates to ideas, or is it only the challenge manager that can access the back end of an idea and update it? I mean, on a grid, like a mass update perspective.
Okay, so the simple answer, I'm going to give you a couple of pivots on this. One, the simple answer is I can invite them directly. I just clicked on the link, it gave me the link, and I'm sending them directly to this Accelerate Digital Transformation. They can go in.
That's the front end, right? That's the front end view. Okay.
Yep. So they can go in and do that directly. Number two, you can assign those people as reviewers by simply dragging that person or that team to that idea or that challenge, at which point they will be fully engaged and can interact with all of the Edison tools to update data, fields, everything. Or you can invite them to the SharePoint list, and they could go in and update the data directly through the SharePoint list.
Sorry, what is the SharePoint list? Is that the list of ideas that got submitted to the challenge? Or
correct.
Okay.
Correct. It's just the list. And yep. And they could bulk edit it. They could do whatever you want. Be careful what you wish for. I mean, I've obviously, part of the reason forms and tools are put in place is to give you control over those things. SharePoint's beautiful and lovely and wonderful, and you can lock it down and control it, but you can also, do a lot of bulk edits too. So, just choose wisely, as they say.
Yeah, we typically have, a handful of challenge team members who help process ideas, because for one person to have to manage, 150 submissions, that's a lot for one person. So we need to be able to have a team of people helping each other out and processing these ideas and,
Yep.
adding data.
Yep. No, I agree. So we've talked about 3 levels. There's probably even other ways I'm not even thinking about. Certainly you could set up a flow if you wanted to set up a specific set of actions that, do this, then do that, then do the other thing. You could control those and put a Power Automate script in there to design and set that up and process it directly.
Okay, so let's say, for example, I want to, any idea related to the enterprise innovation team, I want to automatically assign Pooja as a reviewer. I can build that automated workflow in, and it will automatically add her. I don't have to manually go in and add her.
If you wanted to.
Okay, great. What type of training is available?
Great question. So we have 2 primary levels of training that we provide, and they are for, number 1, admins, the people that control the solution, and 2, what we call champions training. Whereas the admin people would get the full courses of learning all of the different modules and stuff through here, whereas a champions training would learn about each of the key steps and not contain anything in the admin panel. What most of our customers do, or I'll say at least many of them will do, and I've seen one really good example of this with an oil and gas company out of Texas and Peru and stuff like that, where they actually created a quick little video clip that said, welcome to edison365, or you guys call your current thing Innovation Factory, I think. And, whatever, if you keep the name, rename it, however you do this. And welcome to Ideation with Edison365. Here's a quick tour, and then your chief innovation officer or whoever's the face of innovation at KPMG would do that, and then there'd be a landing page or a launch page where they'd click to it, they'd watch the video, it would take them right to this portal, and it would be very tailored and configured specifically for KPMG. We can help you do that. We do that for other companies as well. But our two training are for admin training and champions training.
Can you show me what that is? Are those videos, or is that a portal, a list of podcast, QR, or what is it? Documentation or videos, or what is that?
There's mostly documentation and control and delivery sessions through our community. So our consultants will go through and do that for you. We also provide, of course, the documentation for the products that's available to anybody. You can go through and tailor and customize these things. So for example, quite often people will take our user guide and brand it KPMG, and it will have, your look and feel if you want to make those changes, that says, welcome to these home pages. Here's how you go through and engage with the tool. This is telling you about the various things that you guys have been asking questions for over these last 2 days. What does the Discover page do? And it'll take you through each of these controls.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
To follow on that question, if I'm logging into the platform the first time, I understand what is behind it, but still, would you be able to provide some kind of a product walkthrough? Kind of, if this is my first time I'm logging it, I take a tour. It says, if you click here, you'll be able to submit an idea. I press there. It tells me now put the title, now put something here, and so on. Will there be any kind of PPT like this?
So we have not done that out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
Our customers have done that for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Or we could partner with KPMG to do that for you. But
okay, so that would be a product walkthrough on top of the actual web page.
I mean, you could. There's lots of tools that do that.
Yeah.
We just haven't done it because most people find the products pretty easy. They come in, they hit the add idea button, they figure out which challenge it goes against, and they say, well, I want it to be part of this acceleration thing. They click the form and it's right there. It opens up and they do their thing. So to be honest, we've tried super hard to build these tools as straightforward as we can.
Sure.
So again, it's up to you. All things are possible. Just to be clear, we did not budget that in our proposal to you. Sorry, I have to put that little caveat in there. But yes, we could definitely do that, and you could do it too.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I think we are a little over our time, right? So
we're close to it.
Respectful of everybody's time.
Just one more question, if I may. Just on that point which we are discussing right now, Tad, when you said our consultant will provide the material to understand how that works, will they be getting on a call with KPMG, or will they be providing like a demonstration video or like a guide for us to look at?
No, not at this point. When we're ready to do business together, then they will.
Definitely,
and they'll embark upon the discovery, configuration, rollout, scalability, all the steps that we've put in our proposal. Then the answer is yes. They're waiting and ready to do that.
Understood. Okay.
Yep. Well, thank you guys for asking such great questions and for being deeply engaged in this exercise. You have really tested us in a couple of places, and that's terrific. I'm glad that that's the case. I know you have lots of work to do. Shriram, I think we are going to follow up with another technical call or two as necessary.
Yes.
And then no doubt you hopefully have seen my emails, so you can be in contact with some of our other customers and different things along those routes. I would encourage you to ask questions in whatever format suits your purposes. We hope that you choose to come forward with edison365. I think it would be great fun. And thank you for your participation.
Definitely, Tad. We will take all the all the things you have presented right now. It's been fantastic. We'll gather some questions if there is any, and then follow up with you on that via an email, or arrange a call, but preferably on a convenient time this time, according to your time zone, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you for that.
No problem.
Really appreciate it. Nadine especially, and Pooja, thank you for diving deep, and Zahir, thank you guys very much, and everybody as well. So thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
Todd.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Have a wonderful
Bye-bye.
day.
Take care. Bye-bye.